These two pieces here for the members show, for me, are important pieces. They're very important pieces in my history, genre of work. The cauliflower is an interesting one. It's kind of actually got a humorous story behind it. Ruth Bernhardt and I, Ruth Bernhardt, the photographer, if you're not familiar with Ruth Bernhardt's work, you really need to become aware of it, because when it comes to female nudes, she wrote the book. She's the platinum standard for female nudes, unquestionable. So we were teaching a workshop out west somewhere, and we had all these students in from out east. It's a group that hopped in a VW van and drove out. Workshops, I love them. In any case, it came time where they wanted to see what we were doing, what Ruth was doing, some of her prints and some of mine. So Ruth one night showed her work, and everybody was delighted. The next night it was my turn to show work. So I brought up the cauliflower piece, and I said, well, you know, here's a piece I did early on I really like, the cauliflower. And Ruth jumps up and down and says, oh, the Weston cauliflower, the Weston cauliflower. And I says to Ruth, Ruth, this is a print I made. She said, no, 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 that's the Weston cauliflower. And I said, you know, it's really high praise, but Edward would roll over in his grave if he knew you were saying this. And she, of course, said, no, I'm Edward Weston. But she insisted it was the Weston cauliflower. So, okay, so I put it away, and I felt like a charlatan, like I was trying to pull something off here. And I didn't really show it anymore at the workshops, because I didn't want to run through this dialogue again. And then Ruth died at 102 in 2008, I think it was, right? And she took that feeling to the grave that this was the Western cauliflower and who was this guy, right? And then it was actually just a few years ago. You hear people say, you know, I woke up in the middle of the night, I had this insight, and it's exactly what happened to me. I woke up, and for some reason it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Ruth didn't believe that was an Edward Weston cauliflower, not at all. She basically was trying to instill some confidence in a young photographer. That's what it was all about. There was no reality with it being the Weston cauliflower. It was a Mark Roberts cauliflower, and this guy, he can use all the encouragement he. Okay, so that's sort of the cauliflower. It notably hung in Mondale's Georgetown dining room while he was in office. So it's the cauliflower. The Last Trip, another meaningful print. This dates from early 70s. It was the last trip that I made with Ansel Adams into the high Sierras. Went up and did some photography. So, and I wish I'd known then what I know now. I would have made that trip last a lot longer. But yeah, so it has special significance for me. So that's two prints in the members show that I felt had meaning. Other than that, I work primarily with 8x10 view camera. I'm a throwback. I deal with film. I love film. I love everything about film. I love the smell of the darkroom. I love getting my hands in the chemistry. I love the incredible highs I get when a print is successful. And to be quite honest with you, I suffer a lot when things don't work out right, when prints don't. But it makes the ones that work out taste a lot better. So that's what I do. I don't jump into the argument digital versus film, whatever. I do shoot some digital 35, but only because Kodak took that wonderful black and white infrared film off the market. And so I have my Nikons more or less converted to shoot just black and white infrared, okay? I do a lot with alternative process. Kirlian photography, if you are familiar with that, where you run electricity through objects to get their aura. I've got, actually I have the largest Kirlian camera. It takes 18 by 22 inch sheets of film. And I do a lot with plants. I've got 40 years of doing Kirlian photography. Have a couple prints that I like. I also do work with chemigrams, which is another alternative process, but I really don't want to get into that because it takes too much explanation. So that's sort of where I'm at with it. I started out doing traditional photography with 8x10 view camera. Spent many a day with Ansel on Point Lobos, Yosemite, High Sierras. I more or less, I don't want to say graduated, but I moved on from, you shoot hundreds, maybe thousands of landscapes. For me, it was the process of moving on. So I moved from landscapes, the black and white abstracts, to alternative work. It's just, basically I'm a work in progress.